Have you? What are you hearing about the latest in the country where you are right now?
We've been hearing missiles over our houses over the last hour and a half or 2 hours. There has been 6 missiles sent by Iran on Al Udeid base, the American military base in Qatar. Thank God there are no casualties. These missiles have been intercepted by the Qataris military. And obviously, Qatar has condemned this as a clear violation of international law and a violation of its sovereignty, and said that it would reserve the right to retaliate. I do believe that this particular attack by Iran was expected. They mentioned it. They said that every possible American interests in the Gulf would be legitimate targets. The Americans, on the other hand, here in Qatar, were prepared for this attack, and they have evacuated Al Udeid base. What the Iranians have done is they just, I would call it a symbolic attack on an empty base to save face. They have also threatened other military bases in Iraq and in Bahrain, and they have also made several threats by closing the Strait of Hormuz, which, I mean, the Iranian parliament adopted it, but it has not been approved by the supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei.
Youcef, what do you think is going to happen moving forward? Because that's the question on everyone's mind now, right? Because the US president is holding a meeting with his national security cabinet. Then you have these incoming statements from Gulf countries now. And basically, most of them have condemned this Iranian attack on an American base in Qatar. And now we're hearing reports of more and more flights, more and more airlines suspending their flights in the region. So, I mean, overall, looking at the situation, this has taken the Gulf region by surprise. Now, the question is, what would be the ramification of this Iranian retaliation, not just for Iran and its relationship with Gulf countries, but for the region as a whole?
Well, I think this is the $1 million questions. Obviously, air traffic has been suspended in several countries in the Gulf. The Americans are meeting in the White House to decide of the next step. Iran is not backing off. Obviously, Iran sees this as the last opportunity because they see that the existence of Iran itself is at stake. When we look at what has been happening over the last couple of weeks or so, it reminds us of what happened over 20 years ago with the removal of Saddam. The whole program started with Netanyahu trying to convince the Americans that Saddam had weapons of mass destructions. Netanyahu, over the last 30 years or so, has been saying that Iran was very, very close to developing nuclear weapons. And the idea of weapons of mass destructions and nuclear weapons moved from or moved to removing the regime. It violates human rights and so on and so forth. I think that the Iranians have learned the lessons from what happened to Iraq, and this obviously will, I think, will push the Iranians even more to try to develop nuclear weapons. The situation at the moment is very, very gloomy. It could escalate further, but I do believe, or I do think that within a couple of weeks, things will settle down, because when we look at the American attack on the nuclear plants in Iraq, the Americans are saying that we have destroyed that facility. but the Iranians are saying something else, that their facility was evacuated. And obviously we have been given the proximity of Gulf countries, and
Right.
including Qatar to Iran, we have not seen any
Youcef, I just
radiations,
want to quickly
no.
jump in here. Stay with us. I just want to quickly jump in here and explain to our audience what they're seeing on the left-hand side of their screens right now in full frame. These are basically the rockets, the missiles that were fired from Iran into Doha. We don't know whether or not they actually made an impact, because we know that Qatar's defense ministry says it had intercepted those missiles. So perhaps this is the debris from that interception. There are no reports of any sort of casualties. That's again according to the Qatari defense ministry. These are pictures that TRT World has received of the interception of the Iranian missiles that took place over Qatari airspace. And of course, you can see the debris falling onto Qatari soil. And of course, there's a sense of panic, as we can see in those pictures, people running. And you know, this is something that I have asked my guests before as well, Youcef. Qatar is a country which is not used to something like this. Of course, I mean, I have friends over there. I have friends who have been living there for decades. I have some colleagues who have lived there in the past, and they all tell me that, you know, it's a peaceful country, and you know, people over there are not used to something of this sort. So apart from, you know, causing any sort of any physical damage, which these strikes did not do to any Qatari assets, we don't know whether or not it caused any damage to American military bases. We are still waiting to hear confirmation on that. It did not cause any casualties, but it did give a huge psychological toll to the people of Qatar, did it not?
Well, I think it's very minimal. I have been living in Qatar for the last 16 years or so. I have never ever seen anything like this. Obviously, I saw the missiles myself on the skies of Doha, and in my neighborhood there was nobody was panicking or anything. They were intercepted, and the Iranians themselves were saying that these missiles were targeting Al Udeid base. They were not trying to harm Qatar or any infrastructures and so on and so forth. But the interception of those missiles, and like the pictures show, there are some debris. Obviously, it has created a little bit of panic, but not, in my opinion, and from what I saw in my neighborhood, nothing serious.
Right, and we have now received reporting from the Pentagon as well, which basically says all rockets targeting Al Udeid base in Qatar were shot down and intercepted. So according to the Pentagon, according to the American officials, nothing made an impact on the ground in Qatar. All the missiles, reportedly 6 missiles that were fired into Qatari airspace targeting American assets, were intercepted. We heard similar statements from the Qatari Defense Ministry, which basically said that Qatar intercepted these missiles. Now, you know, one thing that really stands out for me at this point is the fact that both the Americans and Qatari, they are basically saying the same thing about this particular retaliation from Iran. But when it comes to their retaliation, I mean Qatar's retaliation, because it says it deserves the right to respond, would America take part in that retaliation, or would Qatar act alone if it does retaliate?
I think what Qatar said, it reserves the right to retaliate. I think it's part of the diplomatic slogan that is used. Obviously, Qatar's airspace, Qatar's sovereignty has been violated. It's a clear breach of international law. The Iranians were saying that we didn't target Qatar, but we targeted an American base in Qatar, which is legitimate. Qatar says that we reserve the right to retaliate, but I do not think that it will go that way. Qatar's foreign policy has always been that of mediation. I think it will try to cool things down. And as I said earlier in my contribution, I think that the Iranian attack on Al Udeid base is more of symbolic more than anything else. 6 missiles on an empty base. It's one way of saving face that we reply to what the Americans did, albeit on a smaller scale. I do not, from my side, I do not think that Qatar would want to escalate and retaliate.
Youcef Bouandel, thank you very much for your analysis, and thanks very much for joining me here on TRT World. Really appreciate your taking out the time.